Could Pete Kelsey have actually captured visual evidence that there really are portals on Skinwalker Ranch? And could it help explain why we see UAPs appear and then suddenly disappear?
The return of technologist Pete Kelsey to the ranch brought a sense of anticipation to everyone involved. His expertise with advanced scanning and mapping tools had already proven valuable, and now he had come prepared with new technology capable of something the team had been eager to try, which was full photogrammetry of the site. This technique was expected to give them not just a closer look at the land, but an entirely new perspective on what might be hidden within it. The promise of photogrammetry. The ranch, long known for unusual events and phenomena, had been studied in many different ways over the years. Scientists, researchers, and specialists had used everything from ground-penetrating radar to aerial surveys. Each method revealed fascinating pieces of the puzzle, but never a complete picture. Photogrammetry, however, offered something unique. By capturing thousands of overlapping photographs from multiple angles and feeding them into specialized software, the technology could construct a highly detailed three-dimensional map of the entire property. Unlike a traditional photograph, which only shows a flat image from one perspective, this method allowed the team to virtually walk through the landscape, zoom in on precise features, and examine every contour in incredible detail.
So once all the data I have collected is post-processed in a nice, neat package, I hand that to Eric, and he does the heavy lifting, and that is spending hours and hours going through this data because it's all visual.
The goal was clear: create a 3D model of every section of the ranch and carefully analyze it for anomalies. Strange sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena had been reported countless times, but much of the mystery still remained unsolved. If the model revealed anything unexpected, be it an odd shape, a structure that didn't belong, or even features that lined up in unusual ways, it could provide a vital clue. Even the smallest anomaly could potentially connect to the larger mystery of what had been happening on the property for years. As the drone began its work, the importance of the task became even clearer. The device rose steadily into the air, moving across the property in precise patterns, capturing high-resolution images with every pass. Each photograph was just one small piece of the puzzle, but once stitched together, they would create something far greater, a visual record that could be studied and restudied without the limitations of time or weather. The ranch itself was being preserved in digital form. Collecting the data was only the first step. Once Pete had gathered all the photographs, he explained that the next stage was post-processing. This involved taking the massive collection of files and running them through advanced algorithms designed to identify points, angles, and distances between features.
This is a three-dimensional model. It's point cloud data. What it is individual points that have been located through a complex algorithm coming out of all these thousands of pictures that he's taken.
The outcome was what's called point cloud data. Imagine millions, even billions, of tiny dots floating in three-dimensional space, each representing an exact location in the scanned environment. Together, those dots formed a detailed model that could be rotated, zoomed, and studied from every direction. For the team, this data was more than just numbers and images. It was a chance to uncover hidden truths. Once Pete finished compiling the information into a neat package, he passed it on to Eric, who took on the role of closely examining the results. While the software created the models, it still required human eyes and judgment to spot anything unusual. Eric's task was long and painstaking, spending hours upon hours scrolling through the model, inspecting every section, and looking for even the slightest irregularity. The anomalies revealed. After Pete had completed the scan and handed over the data, Eric sat down with the files. What he now had was enormous, roughly 1 billion individual data points, all stitched together into one comprehensive model. This wasn't just a simple image, it was a vast digital map of the ranch, each dot carefully placed to represent something real in the environment. As Eric began reviewing, he quickly realized there were surprising elements in the data. The software had captured more than just the obvious terrain and structures. Certain areas showed artifacts that stood out immediately. These weren't random glitches or typical noise in the data, but rather they were distinct features that seemed out of place. At one point, Eric noticed what looked like a cluster of points suspended in the sky above the property. On the model, it appeared as a phantom structure hovering over the ground, rising well over 100 feet into the air. The sight was startling, not just because of its position, but also because of its sharpness and clarity. This wasn't some faint blur that could easily be brushed off or chalked up to a glitch. Instead, it stood out clearly against the otherwise smooth and consistent data. It looked intentional, almost deliberate, in the way it seemed to sit there, refusing to blend in with the rest of the survey results. Curious, but also cautious, Eric sat down with his team to share what he had found. Everyone gathered around, eyes narrowing as the unusual shape appeared on the screen. To be sure he wasn't jumping to conclusions, Eric decided to go one step further. He reached out to both Pete, who had conducted the survey, and the vendor of the software itself. If anyone could explain whether this type of anomaly was expected, it would be them. The answer came back quickly and firmly. No, this was not normal. Photogrammetry is designed to create clean, reliable, and highly accurate models. While tiny errors sometimes appear, they are usually scattered, fuzzy, and random, but never crisp and well-defined shapes hanging in the sky.
That looks like that's a whole bunch of points right there.
Oh, it is.
Well, what would cause it to do that if that's up in the air?
That's the question.
To see something so distinct was, at best, highly unusual and at worst, completely unexplained. That unsettling confirmation only pushed Eric to dig deeper. If this one anomaly existed, it raised the possibility that more were hidden within the data. Determined, he combed through the point cloud more carefully, scrutinizing every section for irregularities. And to the team's disbelief, his persistence paid off. Another strange anomaly appeared, this time connected to a spot already deeply significant in their past work, the mysterious stone circle. When Eric overlaid the new survey data onto the known positions of the circle, something striking emerged. The anomalies weren't random at all. They seemed to line up in direct relation to the stones. Most compelling of all, the largest stone appeared to serve as a central reference point. From there, phantom-like shapes stretched both north and south, falling perfectly into alignment with the massive rock. What this created was a straight line, 3 distinct points forming a geometric pattern across the landscape. The odds of such a clean alignment being a pure coincidence seemed small. While technically possible, the way it presented itself felt far too intentional to dismiss. The discovery immediately sparked questions among the group. Was this alignment pointing toward a hidden system of organization on the ranch? Could these anomalies represent markers in some kind of map, or clues to a larger pattern waiting to be uncovered? For the team, the discovery was impossible to ignore. Over the course of their research, they had learned an important lesson. Never dismiss anomalous data, no matter how confusing or unexplained it might appear at first glance. Even if the significance wasn't immediately clear, every unusual feature had the potential to connect with something larger.
We've learned not to ignore any anomalous features in our data, even if we have no idea what to make of them.
The alignment suggested more than just random artifacts in the software. It hinted at a kind of structure or purpose. To visualize it, one could imagine a ray being drawn straight from the anomaly in the south, through the central stone and up toward the anomaly in the north. It was as if the anomalies themselves were marking a path or pointing toward something beyond. The discovery left the team with even more questions. What exactly was the line pointing to? Was it marking a hidden feature in the landscape, or was it part of a larger system they had yet to uncover? The only way forward was to mark these locations carefully and plan further investigations. If the anomalies truly represented something physical and not just glitches in the data, they could be vital clues in unraveling the broader mystery of the ranch. Each anomaly was now a potential lead. Whether they were natural, technological, or something beyond current understanding, their alignment with the stone circle was too striking to dismiss. The team recognized that this was not the end of the investigation, but the beginning of a new phase. The photogrammetry scan had not only provided a precise map of the ranch, but had also revealed new targets for exploration, with features that demanded attention, study, and perhaps even ground truth verification. What made this development so compelling was the combination of technology and observation. Photogrammetry offered accuracy beyond what the human eye could capture in a single glance, but it was still the careful human analysis of the model that brought meaning to the results. The partnership between advanced tools and persistent researchers was what allowed discoveries like this to come to light. The team now faced a fresh challenge. With the anomalies marked and their alignments noted, The next step was to determine what these features represented in reality. Were they purely digital artifacts created by the software, or were they the digital shadows of something tangible waiting to be uncovered? Whatever the answer, the photogrammetry scan had delivered exactly what they had hoped for. Not just a detailed model of the ranch, but new mysteries worth pursuing. And while the answers remained elusive, the path forward was becoming clearer. Each anomaly, each line, each unexplained structure was another piece of the puzzle and another invitation to look deeper into the unknown.
Spoken with the vendor of this software, asking, is this common? And the answer that I've gotten is no.
Really?
This is not a common thing in terrestrial surveys like this.
The moment the point cloud anomaly was confirmed, the team immediately began asking the big question. Could Pete Kelsey's scan have actually captured real visual evidence of something like a portal on the ranch? If so, could that be why unidentified aerial phenomena sometimes appear over the property and then vanish without a trace? The idea felt heavy. If real, it could explain sudden materializations and disappearances that had puzzled the investigators for years. Everyone agreed they owed it to the work and to the truth to follow up on any data anomaly they found, especially ones that were as clear and prominent as these. The protocol had always been to treat unusual results seriously, regardless of how strange they seemed at first. The logic was simple. Data doesn't lie, but it does often speak in riddles. The only way to move from a riddle to an answer was to follow each clue, no matter how odd. Eric's reaction to the data reflected that sense of duty. He found the results fascinating, but also recognized that they came with responsibility. For him, the only reasonable next step was to review the findings with Brandon Fugel, the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, along with the rest of the team. This was not a casual suggestion or a passing idea. The work they were undertaking had been structured carefully from the beginning, and it demanded a coordinated approach. Any anomaly that appeared in the scans had to be handled methodically, and that meant involving everyone who had a stake in the investigation. The logic was simple. If there was a way to verify the feature through additional scans, comparisons, or independent review, then they had to pursue that. If no verification was possible, the anomaly still had to be preserved as evidence. Either way, the data could not be ignored. For Eric and his colleagues, the choice was not whether to act, but how best to act together. Briefing the stakeholders. To address this properly, a formal briefing was arranged. The gathering was more than a simple team meeting. It brought together not only the technical staff who carried out the daily work on the ranch, but also individuals who lent weight and visibility to the project. A former governor, Gary R. Herbert, who had taken a strong personal interest in the research, was present.
I'm very excited about the next chapter. I think you've got momentum. Again, like Dr. Taylor is talking about, this should be a scalpeled approach. Eric, you've mentioned how we've got to be careful about what we're doing here so we don't damage the information we'll find.
An investigative journalist, George Knapp, widely respected for his extensive reporting on Skinwalker Ranch and related phenomena, also attended. Their presence signaled that what was happening on the ranch was being watched and documented at the highest levels of public interest. The purpose of the briefing was twofold. First, the group wanted to present the newest evidence from Pete Kelsey's photogrammetry survey. Second, they wanted to take a step back and review the full scope of discoveries made during the year. This way, any decision on next steps could be grounded in both the fresh anomaly and the broader context of ongoing patterns they had been studying. As the meeting began, the tone was reflective but energized. Members of the team noted that, by unanimous agreement, the past year had been the most productive in the history of their investigation. The involvement of political and journalistic figures was not just symbolic. Their participation reinforced the idea that this research mattered on multiple levels. For the scientific staff, their day-to-day tasks had not changed, but the governor's attention elevated the legitimacy of the work. It showed that the unusual events on the ranch were not being dismissed as folklore or fringe stories, but were instead receiving formal attention and respect. The governor's engagement also highlighted something the team valued: the ability to frame their discoveries in a way that could reach beyond the ranch itself. His presence showed that there was interest in connecting the findings to broader questions about science, technology, and even governance. The implication was that the ranch might hold significance not just for those working on it, but for the larger public. The investigative journalist's role carried similar weight, though in a different way. He had built his reputation over decades by carefully reporting on phenomena like those being studied at the ranch. When the new 3D model was finally displayed during the session, the effect was immediate. The image filled the screen. Pete's detailed survey of the mesa, with the strange anomaly clearly visible above it.
You have 3 points in a line.
Wow.
Interestingly and somewhat mysteriously, the anomalies to the south and to the north of the stone circle align perfectly with that large center stone in the stone circle itself.
Once again, the structure appeared as a solid, well-defined feature hanging in space. It was not faint, not easy to dismiss as a glitch. Everyone in the room leaned in, studying the model with quiet concentration. The silence was not for spectacle. It came from the weight of the evidence before them. This was the kind of moment that demanded seriousness. No one rushed to declare what it meant. Instead, they took their time, acknowledging that the anomaly was real in the sense that it appeared in reliable data, but that its meaning remained unknown. For a group committed to following evidence, that distinction mattered. From there, the discussion turned to strategy. The consensus that emerged was clear. Moving forward would require a multidisciplinary approach. No single field of study could capture the complexity of the ranch's phenomena. Physics, engineering, geology, and even investigative reporting all had roles to play. The key was to let the data itself guide them, to drive their next steps not by speculation or assumption, but by following the evidence wherever it pointed. They spoke about precision as well. Every action taken on the ranch carried risks, not just physical but also scientific. A clumsy test could damage fragile data or disrupt an anomaly in a way that prevents further study. A careful, scalpel-like approach, as one of the experts described it, was required. They had to balance curiosity with discipline, making sure that their pursuit of answers did not destroy the very evidence they were trying to understand. In the end, the meeting reinforced their collective sense of mission. They were not just reacting to strange events, but actively shaping a structured investigation. The year had given them breakthroughs, but it had also taught them caution. Now, with the anomaly from Pete's survey in front of them, they were prepared to move forward, together, carefully, and with a renewed sense of determination. That approach meant several things in practice. It meant continuing to deploy photogrammetry and other sensing technologies to gather more data. It involved carefully analyzing the data using both automated tools and human review. It meant coordinating with people who could help interpret findings in fields like geology, atmospheric science, and remote sensing. It also meant documenting each step in ways that would allow others to check the work later. Importantly, it meant moving deliberately so that their actions did not damage any information the ranch might be holding or bias future observations.
This looks like a solid structure in the sky.
Yes. This object, whatever it is, it's really fascinating. What are we looking at? We don't know at this point.
Part of the conversation turned to the nature of what they might be dealing with at the ranch. The team acknowledged they appeared to be triggering contact in some way, and that this contact was manifesting above the property in distinct ways, whether that contact was the result of natural processes, unknown technology, or something else entirely. The behavior being observed was real. Phenomena were appearing above the ranch with regularity and had effects that were detectable by both instruments and eyewitnesses alike. For some on the team, the implications of that pattern were profound. They spoke about dealing with forces and phenomena that might redefine aspects of how people understand reality. That language was careful. It reflected both excitement and caution. Nobody on the team was rushing to wild conclusions, but they could not ignore the possibility that discoveries here might challenge established ideas about history and the physical world if they were confirmed and understood. With momentum building, the leadership urged a scalpel-like approach to next steps. The point was to be precise, not aggressive. They needed to probe gently and record everything, so they did not destroy information or influence the phenomena by their presence. The team had seen before how the mere act of measuring could affect an observation. For that reason, planning and restraint were as important as technical skill. Eric specifically emphasized caution, reminding the group why meticulous methods mattered. Follow-up work needed to be planned so that it preserved the integrity of both the site and the data. The team had already made breakthroughs across different areas of investigation, and they wanted future work to build on that strong base instead of risking mistakes that could undo what they had achieved. They reminded each other that progress had come slowly and carefully, and it needed to stay that way. Every piece of data was valuable, and even small errors could set them back significantly. As the briefing came to a close, there was gratitude for everyone who took the time for the meeting, and the team agreed on clear next steps. Mark the anomalies with precision, plan follow-up checks in the field, expand the review by inviting outside experts where needed, and keep collecting more data.
We need to talk about the reality of what we're dealing with in this investigation. Based on all of these combined events, how do we move forward? I think everyone would agree that we move forward having a multidisciplinary, diverse approach to really tackling this problem set and taking the data.
Each action had to be done with patience and care so nothing important was missed, overlooked, or disturbed. They intended to stay in close communication about findings and to coordinate when necessary to validate any suspicious features on the ground. The commitment was both operational and ethical, to pursue truth while remaining careful and methodical. When the formal meeting ended and people began to leave, a reflective tone lingered. The team felt closer to answers than before, not because everything had suddenly become clear, but because the new data had given them specific leads to investigate. The scan had produced tangible markers, objects and alignments that were now points of interest rather than vague memories or anecdotal reports. That transformed uncertainty into a more focused problem, and a problem was a challenge that could be met with a method. A roadmap into the unknown. Back at the ranch, investigators looked back on how their own perspectives had changed over time. Some remembered arriving with skepticism or with no prior exposure to these phenomena. Yet through direct observation and careful recording, they had watched their ideas shift. Seeing a large spherical object in the sky or a clear digital anomaly in a photogrammetry model had caused them to re-examine assumptions. These personal changes were not reckless conversions to belief. Instead, they were reasoned responses to evidence that could not be ignored. The team felt a responsibility to the broader world. They believed that an open, honest investigation could inform others and help everyone move closer to answers about what was happening on the ranch. Confronting the unknown required courage, they argued, courage to look, record, analyze, and then report what the data showed. As they prepared for the next chapter of work, that commitment to rigorous curiosity was what would guide them. To follow the anomalies, mark them, and keep asking what lies at the heart of these strange events. The recent scan had changed the nature of the investigation. It had given the group a more precise map of where to look and what to test. With a careful, multidisciplinary plan and disciplined execution, they now had the opportunity to turn those lines and points on a model into concrete, testable leads. The path ahead would not be easy or guaranteed, but for the first time in a long run of work, the team could see a roadmap defined by data and sharpened by a shared commitment to find out the truth.